I think I've learned better now embracing failure as a necessary means to success. Mm-hmm. And maybe earlier on, I would have saw that as I'm a failure and not the failure as a stepping stone towards progress. So like, and now I have an idea if we fail or if I fail, like that means I'm trying things. I'm getting outside my comfort zone. My view of it is very positive. Whereas maybe early on, I would have saw those as setbacks and like, that's it, like final, outcome.
Right.
And not seeing failure as like good. It means I'm trying things. I'm pushing forward, and like failure is a positive thing towards building towards what I want.
In Napoleon Hill's timeless classic, Think and Grow Rich, he defines a mastermind group as the coordination of knowledge and effort between two or more people for the attainment of a definite purpose. In this podcast, that coordination is created between you, me, and our amazing guests. Our definite purpose is achieving extraordinary results in your business and your life. I'm your host, Brad Mulvey. Welcome to the Millennial Mastermind Podcast.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Millennial Mastermind Podcast. Joined here by today with a newer friend, but the co-founder of University Tees and a fellow Miami University alumni, Nick Dadas.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Am I pronouncing that right?
Dadas, yeah.
Dadas, okay.
Yep.
Better make sure.
Nice job.
Don't want to get halfway through the episode and realize I totally butchered it. So I'm excited to kind of dive into this episode because we were connected through a mutual friend, and then you invited me here one day to grab a coffee, get a tour of your guys' facility, and it's a really cool spot. But even more interesting is the culture and the business that you've cultivated and that you've built here. Mm-hmm. And I think there's a lot of facets of it that I'm excited to dive into that I think that the listeners are really going to get a lot out of, because there's a lot of people who are listening to the show who are very interested in entrepreneurship and starting mm-hmm. business, or maybe in the early phases of starting a business and have a kind of a fresh company that is primed for shaping to be just an amazing culture, and can absorb some of the lessons that you've learned and put into place some of the things that you've picked up over the years and that you guys have implemented really well.
Love it. I'm excited. I think culture is one of my most favorite things, and the feeling that I get when I come to work and what I want everybody to have is hopefully something we can explore a little bit.
Perfect. So to kick things off, would you mind just giving a little bit of background on yourself and University Tees, how this whole thing came to be?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I grew up very entrepreneurial, always doing the side hustle as a kid, mowing lawns, doing that kind of stuff. Always wanted to pave my own path. And then in college at Miami, got a chance I saw an opportunity, a t-shirt opportunity on campus where the local provider was just providing poor service, and they pretty much had a monopoly on the competition on campus. And I was just really frustrated me that that's who everybody on campus was working with. And I saw that as a huge opportunity to do it better than them. And so I was a student, I was a sophomore at Miami at the time, and thought, all these student organizations, the sororities, the fraternities, the sports, intramurals, everybody, I really want a chance to serve them better. And I knew from my experience ordering shirts what people, what they went through. And so I said, I want to create a service, for students that really understands what people want on campus. And so that's what we set out to do. And it was a very old school, meeting with people at the library, meeting with people at their home to help figure out what they wanted from a design standpoint, and then moving towards helping the whole customer experience be, what does someone who's ordering custom apparel really want? So that's how we started in 2003, and we've been at it 15 years. And, kind of to bring it up to current speed, we're on a little over 300 campuses, and we have a little over 700 campus managers who are college students selling apparel and getting great entrepreneurial experience on their campus. And then, since then, we've also branched into the corporate side of things, selling to local businesses and gyms and nonprofits and things like that too. So
very cool.
Yeah.
So how did it go from this operation of being local, specifically on Miami's campus, to branching out into that whole now network of universities and campus reps that you've grown into. What was that the vision from the get-go, or what was kind of that transition like?
Well, definitely wasn't the initial. The initial vision was to make some money for a fun spring break.
Yeah.
And then it transitioned to, this is really working on Miami's campus. And then, we saw it was working, and I had friends at other schools at the time. So Miami's close to Dayton and OU and Ohio State and some other schools down there. Ohio's a hotbed for colleges. So I said, here's what I'm doing at Miami. Here's what we're doing, Joe and I. And, here's how we're attracting people. Here's how we're serving them. And if you want to do the same. And so they did it on their campuses, and it worked. And so that was really the first iterations of our first couple campus manager models. And once we saw that it was working on 2, 3, 4 campuses, we thought, maybe this is something that we could actually scale beyond graduation. So there was a business plan competition, which was part of my major, which was marketing and entrepreneurship. And you had a chance to take a class where I could actually do a fruitful exercise of going through creating a business plan for universities that we had up to date. And it was really thinking through, what does scale look like? What does it actually, what could this business look like 5, 10 years down the road? And so we were fortunate enough to go through that exercise, went through it, and all the judges on campus had really, they voted us as the winner of all the other plans on campus that year. So that really gave us a ton of confidence. We're like, wow, people actually believe in this idea, the simple concept of students selling shirts to other students, and it all being about relationships. And so that really gave us the confidence to go from those first 3, 4, 5 schools to, okay, how do we get to the next 20? And then from 20, what's working? How do we get to 50? How do we get to 100? How do we get to 200 into current date? And so that's kind of how the iteration happened of us doing at Miami to me training one of my best friends at McDonald's on Miami's campus so he could take the tools and do it at Dayton, and doing the same thing at OU. And then over the years, obviously, we've refined what campuses we're looking for, what we're looking for, the traits of a campus manager that's successful, and so on and so forth.
Very nice. Sitting in that McDonald's next to the fireplace. Did they have that when you were on campus?
They did, yeah.
Yes, very nice.
Yeah, it was the first ever campus manager training that we ever had.
A classy location.
That's right.
So I want to dive into a topic that you mentioned the last time that you and I had gotten together, of DPCL. So would you mind explaining what that is and how that integrates with your business?
Yeah, absolutely. So DPCL is an acronym that is our company purpose. It's our why, and it stands for Developing People and Changing Lives. And it's at the core of who we are. So I say who we are is, and why we do what we do is to DPCL. We want to think about what can we do to improve ourselves and those around us so we can live, life to the fullest. What we do is we sell t-shirts. We have an awesome experience for ordering and producing custom apparel, but that's what we do. It's not why we do it. Mm-hmm. So a lot of our decisions are based on the fact that we understand that our business is all about people. So, we're not afraid to go to the personal level with people. I think what I've learned is, you can either choose to be transactional or relational. And I shift, you have to have a good transaction in order to run a good business. But for us, our focus is all about the relational side of it and the people development. So if I'm leading somebody and I'm their leader and I'm helping them grow as a person, I really have to ask the tough questions, like what's going on in your life on a personal level, as well as what's going on in your life on a professional level. Like, how can I help you develop both personally and professionally? Because if you have an issue at home that's happening, whatever it is, a medical issue or something in the family, a relational thing, if I'm leading you and I want you to be your best at work, I can't be naive to think that I shouldn't help you to the degree that you want me, or I'm able to help you with that thing. Because if you can remove that thorn from their eye personally, they're going to be more successful professionally, and you're going to have a stronger company. So that's where developing people is like, help them get to the furthest spot that they want to get to, and that you can help them get to both personally and professionally, and really understand the person on a relational level, not just transactional and what is your role in the business. So that's how we think about it. And we do lots of stuff from a culture perspective to help people, challenge them to get outside their comfort zone, to grow, because we're only going to grow at the pace of the people that make up our whole organization, and me included. Right. If I'm the leader of the organization, we're limited by me. So I need to be growing myself just as much as I need to be investing back in our people. Right. So that's our whole company motto. And hopefully, like you mentioned, when you came in, you felt like the energy and you felt some of the things we want everybody to exhibit our 5 values, and one of them is being driven. And we want people who come to work passionate, motivated. They're not okay with the status quo. They're not okay with coasting, which coasting to me is either you're slowing down or you're going downhill.
Right.
So we want people to be making progress, because we've learned through other companies like Zappos or other organizations that one thing about happiness comes from making progress. If you're making progress, you feel more fulfilled. Whenever you feel like you're kind of like leveling out, you're plateaued, you start to feel a little bit more depressed, a little sadder, you're not as full of energy, and that's not the kind of culture we want to exist. So we do our best to help people always be progressing, always be growing, both personally and professionally.
Sure. So have there been any times in the company history where you had to really take a look at what's the decision here that might be best for the bottom line versus what's the decision here that's best for our people, and the answer to that question was not the same? Put another way, have there been any decisions that have been made specifically to develop people and change lives that from first glance wouldn't be, the wisest business decision, but you guys knew it was right for your people?
Yeah. Well, so making that decision to go to that relational side and not be afraid to understand what people have going on with their kids and their family and what they have going outside of work lends itself to the other side of the coin. Because when you run into issues where people aren't performing in the role that the business needs it to, but what's going on at home, makes making the right decisions for the business a lot tougher, because we run a lot of things, and one of the things we use is like, for a role, do they get it? Do they want it? Do they have capacity? So do they understand the role? Do they have do they want it? And do they have the time, energy, mental resources, et cetera, experience to do it? When you add an F on there, so GWC, with friends, then it becomes a lot harder, because you're taking into things that are really not business related, but you know them because of your relation with them.
Right.
So there's been a lot of situations where I'd say when we reach that time and we know that's time to like move on, where the company is outgrowing somebody's specific ability to perform their role, those are the absolute toughest things. However, when you're leading an organization of 200 people, we have to do the things that are right for the mass. I can't forsake what's right for one person and forfeit the other 199 that are going to be affected by that. So as a leader, you have to make those tough decisions. Other things we've done would be that normal businesses I don't think would do, would be like, for example, if someone's having an issue, say with their kids or with their marriage, we'll invest in them, and we actually have a DPCL fund for every single person based on what they earn in the company, for them to go pursue things personally and professionally that's going to help them grow. So we've invested, thousands of dollars in helping maybe someone repair a relationship that normal businesses, there's not an expense line on your budget for marriage counseling.
Very unique.
But if I value that person and I realize that they need to take care of that issue because I want them to be on the team and I want to take care of them and I love them, then I gotta do what you gotta do.
Yeah. So at what point in the company's history did you implement this philosophy?
Well, I think it's something that maybe Joe and I have always had. We just never really pulled it out of ourselves. What is our why? I think we were more focused in the early stages on proving the concept, and it was more about getting business and sales and the typical things. And then as we started to lead a team of a larger team, maybe when we got to 15, 20 people, and now we're at roughly under 200, we started to realize that our job is to be the best leaders that we can. And there's people that are going after the sales. So our job is to really take care of our people. We realized that we're not doing everything like we were when we started. So we made that shift from salesman, marketing, et cetera, jack of all trades, to really we're leading the organization, leading people. So now we need to focus on growing our people the most so that they can be the best version of themselves. So I think that's when we started to make that shift, is when we started to have more people and our time was more spent in just leading those people who were doing the specific roles than what it was when we were doing those roles.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. And the reason I asked that question is because I think that this message could be getting to some of our listeners at the perfect time. And I know for me, as I'm looking ahead at building a team and things like that, it's great to get this information now beforehand so that these things can be woven into the fabric of any company to come from the get-go. And it sounds like without maybe being intentional about in the beginning, you guys kind of did that, which I think must have lended itself to help you get to where you are today to be able to stick with that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm thinking about like multiple examples in the past where it's always come down to I've always thought about how I want people to feel when they're with me. And I want them to feel like we were generous, that we were helpful, that we would serve them, that we, and that sometimes means if people stayed with our organization or they left our organization, I want them to feel a certain way about me and have a certain vision of, like, when I interact with Nick, here's how I want them to feel. I want them to feel like engaged and energized and full of life and like full of possibility. So how do I do that as a leader? And then so we read Simon Sinek book a while back, like What's Your Why, and really like made us really think about that a lot. And at the same time, just examples of like how we dealt with people and how we interacted with those things really helped us formulate that DPCL. And it came about through multiple examples over time of really investing in people and doing non-conventional things that most people wouldn't do to lead the organization.
Right. Yeah. So changing gears a little bit, for future entrepreneurs who might be listening to this or early stage entrepreneurs, is there any advice that you have that you would like to share with them from what you've learned in your, almost 15 years of doing this?
Yeah, I think some of the things I've learned when I first couple hires, I think were really key. And I butchered most of them, almost all of them, because I wanted to hire more people like myself. I'm a high visionary, ideas, business development, paving into the future of what we do. So I thought I needed more Nicks. And what I really needed was the right recipe to make the business successful. So that comes into, I wish I would have done more time reflecting on like, what is my unique ability? What are my skills? What am I passionate about? And what is the value that I add the most to the business on? So, and then hiring around that and backfilling. And it comes down to ego, I think, in a lot of senses, that you have to be willing to hire somebody who's better at something than you are. And even though you started the company, even though you know everything, you need to hire someone who is way better at marketing or social media or sales or ops or accounting, anything, right? Because at the beginning, you're kind of mostly doing it all yourself. And there comes a time where you realize that that's not your God-given ability. That's not your unique ability. How can you hire around it? Right. And so the more you know yourself and you know your strengths and weaknesses, the more you can better build that team around you as you want to, as you see the company's resources needing to be filled, not being afraid to hire people who can work circles around you.
On the flip side of that, then have you had to hire somebody for something that you're really good at, that's one of your strengths, but you just kind of outgrew that role in the company? And how does that change when instead of hiring somebody for something that isn't your strength, you're hiring for something that is your strength you just ran out of capacity for?
Yeah, easy for me to outsource accounting, finance, things like that. Harder to, I think that one of the biggest shifts that I've made that has helped our company scale is actually getting to a point where I would 100% let go of sales. I was pivotal in sales management, initially sales on campus, then sales management of our campus managers. And then when we started our corporate side, sales and then sales management. And I always had my hand in it because I was always, that was like what kept the machine moving, was like getting new customers. And when I finally made the decision to hire a better sales leader, better salespeople and better sales leaders, and 100% let go of it, that's when I finally felt like I actually owned a business and not a job. And the difference is I can be gone for 4 weeks, 6 weeks, like maybe not in the office, or I can step away from it and the machine doesn't stop moving. And so to me, that's the difference between, do you have a job, a really good job, or do you actually have a business? And I've been focused on how can I make this thing sustain and grow without me pushing every little piece of it. And that only comes from being able to step away and hire the best people to run those different cogs in the machine that make the whole thing go around.
Yeah. Well, you bring up an interesting point of being able to step away. And so if I could bring up Hawaii, I think that it's an interesting point, because as we were trying to get this scheduled, you were with your family in Hawaii traveling, maybe working, I'm not sure, but it made me realize that you truly do have a business that can operate without you here, on the ground level, with like at the location. And I think that that's something that will be very interesting to myself definitely, and people listening that want to create a business that fits their lifestyle and doesn't run their lifestyle. So was that something that was part of your vision from earlier on, or did that come with the growth of the company that you realized you had to do things like hire somebody who can run the sales without you, and you can really work on the business, not in the business? Kind of when did that mindset set?
I wanted freedom. I mean, I think that's what a lot of people started, to be an entrepreneur or a business owner, even better worded, like I want to own a business. I didn't want to have a job. So that's why I got into this, path of being a little more risky in terms of income and finances. But I wanted to have flexibility. I wanted to have freedom financially, where if I, really hustle and come up with some great ideas, that I could have unlimited earning potential. But money is only one piece of it. To me, it was the freedom of a young family of twin boys that are just under 3 years old. And I realized it's a really important piece of our life, like time frame right now. So we wanted to, take this time to have freedom from location too. And we wanted to be able to travel and Cleveland winters are long. They're like 6 months. So we're like, how do we get away from the snow and the gray for at least a little while to get some vitamin D?
Right.
And so we're, that was the thought that we had early on, is like, how do we get our business to operate so that it's not dependent on us? One piece of it is we wanted the business to operate while we're sleeping. So what are the things that where there's bottlenecks in the whole chain that stops it? And anywhere where we were personally a bottleneck, Joe and I speaking to, how do we remove ourselves from that function so that it can happen? And when we're working, we only make the thing go faster and faster. It's like, but it doesn't stop or slow down because of us.
Right.
And so that was something that we were very intentional about, creating a business. There's a great book we read early on. It was called The E-Myth by Michael Gerber. It talks about the difference between a technician and a business owner, and the difference between working in the business and working on the business, and making that shift and the clear, differentiating things that are in the business activities and on the business activities. So, us over time, I wanted that intentionality about having that freedom. So anything that was in the business became job descriptions for other people, and said, okay, and I would make a list of all the things that I would do on a daily basis and say, well, anything I didn't want to do or that was like lower value type of activities became someone's opportunity down the road. And that was a great DPCL opportunity. Maybe that was a perfect job that they wanted. And it was also something that I didn't want to do that also prevented me from maybe doing what I wanted. So yeah, like this year we spent 6 weeks in Hawaii, and the first week was vacation with the family. And then the rest we worked, 5-6 hours a day, but had the rest of the time to just enjoy family. And, we were very intentional about setting up our roles within the business that I could do and still be responsible and accountable for my things, but do it from freedom from geography.
Right.
Like, do it from remotely for that period of time.
Incredible. So back to kind of the folks who are listening and are still in those early stages, are there any other, besides the hiring piece of really focusing on key hires for people who can do the role, not hiring multiple Nicks, is there anything else that jumps out that you would share with a early stage entrepreneur that they should be thinking about?
Yeah. It's kind of along the lines of hiring, but one thing we did was you created an advisory board, because as the owner, you're typically not accountable to anybody else. It's just yourself. And so that can be dangerous when you don't have that accountability built in. So we created kind of to serve dual purposes. So we created an advisory board of people that have way more experience outside of what Joe and I's personal experience was. So marketing, ops, sales, legal, et cetera. People that we knew that cared about us, cared about our success, and that I really respected and looked it up to. So we would meet with them every 3 or 4 months, and it was our chance to, kind of hone our thinking. And the two main purposes of the advisory board is, one is to keep us from making giant mistakes. And then second, to help us build our business, to make introductions to people, to processes, to help us think about things that we need to know in the future. So it was almost like our bosses, but they weren't our bosses, but it served as a really healthy tension and accountability in the business. And we've been doing that for years now. And that is a huge thing that's free, doesn't cost any money. It takes some time to organize and ask people and put the time together. But we just meet over dinner, like 6 to 9 in our office. We bring in food, feed them. We have an agenda, major things going on. And that's been huge because I think there's been a lot of decisions that we would have been totally pursuing that maybe would have been very bad for us.
Right.
So they've really prevented us from stepping down that, that path of destruction.
So what was that process like, reaching out to people and inviting them to be part of your advisory board and asking them to essentially give their time for free to help your business grow? Yeah,
we focused on people that we knew or were within one step of somebody we knew that said, hey, here's our business, here's what we're all about, here's our our why, we're all about DPCL, and we want to grow our business to be able to fulfill that DPCL as much as possible. Would you be willing to come for 3 hours, three times a year? So it's a 9-hour commitment. And we try to do things for them. So each of them has different causes that they're passionate about. So we'll try to reciprocate and help them or support their causes, things that they do. But it was really a casual thing. It's not a board of directors where they're owners of the company. We report to them. We're looking them for advice. So we just tried to cultivate it, and we tried to, make it where it was valuable to them. People want to give back, and I think that's one of the things that, people tell me that I do well is I'm not afraid to ask for help. I'm not afraid to say, you have something that I want, and not being afraid to just say, hey, can you help me? Because surprisingly, people do want to help and they can make time. So that's a resource that you can either tap into or let it go by. And so not being afraid to ask for help because they can is, could be a very valuable thing for you to tap into.
Do you think that that's something that can work well too, having that advisory board for even if you don't have a formalized business yet, creating, just somewhat of a network of mentors to help you get to that point where you're ready to launch a business?
Yeah, absolutely. If you're in the early stages, you're thinking about it. I'd say we've always had that. We didn't really realize it all along. We had 1 or 2 people that we were serving as our advisors as we were formulating the idea, like I mentioned, the business planning competition. So I'm a firm believer, the way I work best is I have actual deadlines where I have to show up for things. So if I have a board of advisors meeting, and that could even be with one person early on, just meeting at, for breakfast to talk about their thing. When you have a deadline and you show up for things, it forces you to prepare. It forces you to think about things, clarify your thoughts, et cetera.
Right.
So for now, that's something that we do form a little bit more formally, but it's still very casual. But early on, it was meeting for breakfast or lunch and saying, here's where we're at with our business. What do you think? Just very, very, rudimentary.
Sure.
But having those deadlines in place, every 3 months, 4 months, that can serve as healthy accountability can help you stay on track. Because there's no one, if you're an entrepreneur and you're by yourself, there's no one that's, pushing you. It's up to you. So if you force those deadlines, it's like signing up for a race. You're going to have to show up and the gun's going to go off and you're either prepared or you're not. But when you have a deadline and you have, something that is going to happen, there's going to be a consequence, you're most likely not going to show up and look like an idiot and come unprepared. You're going to do a little pre-thought, and that's helpful for you too. So I've always preset fake deadlines with people in the future. I have things now, I have races that I'm signed up for personally. I have triathlons I want to do, and I just sign up for them because I know it's going to force me to do the work to get prepared for that event.
Yeah, baking in that accountability.
Yeah.
Have you ever done anything more like peer-to-peer, such as a mastermind group or something like that has kind of a similar accountability element, or has it been mostly with that advisory board?
I found more benefit in the meeting with people that are where I want to go.
Sure.
Then I've done that where I've met around with other entrepreneurs who are kicking around the same things, and that's definitely I don't think there's anything bad about that.
Right.
I've just, for whatever reason, focused more on where do I want to go. I kind of had a vision of where I wanted to go, so I'd be like, okay, who is there?
Yeah.
Who can help me get there?
Right.
Not who's in my current spot, because they only have perspective of where they are a lot of times. But I definitely know EO has been huge for people, and having other people, entrepreneurs organization or other things like that, where you can, you have like-minded people who are doing different things who have maybe faced similar issues. So I don't think there's bad. For whatever reason, I've just been more focused on, the next step and spending time with where I want to go.
Yeah.
And so our advisory board early on, those people that we would meet with as mentors for lunch or breakfast were more people who were business owners who had built successful companies and could point me in the right direction.
Right. Makes a lot of sense. So I know you've given a few examples of things that advice you would give to younger entrepreneurs or things you might have done differently. But if you could hop in a time machine and go back and talk to Nick at, sophomore at Miami, just getting this idea of maybe starting this on-campus t-shirt company, is there one thing that you might tell yourself at that point in time based on everything that you've learned since then?
There's so many things. I guess I'm tough to say because I'm thankful for all. Like I feel like they've all those things have happened for a reason. It's probably to realize that like there's no shortcuts. There's really isn't. There's no quick path to success. And that I think I've learned better now embracing failure as a necessary means to success. Mm-hmm. And maybe earlier on I would have saw that as I'm a failure and not the failure is a stepping stone towards progress. So like, and now I have an idea if we fail or if I fail, like that means I'm trying things. I'm getting outside my comfort zone. My view of it is very positive. Whereas maybe early on I would have saw those as setbacks and like, that's it, like final, outcome.
Right.
And not seeing failure as like good. It means I'm trying things and I'm pushing forward, and like failure is a positive thing towards building towards what I want. I probably would have been in that mindset. And then back then, I probably was solely focused on just building UTs, and my life was not balanced in other areas. Mm-hmm. And I think now, husband, father, more different responsibilities, my life's more balanced in terms of, being healthy and being a great father and being a great, husband and, great family member, et cetera, like all those areas I mentioned. I was probably solely focused on just being business, that I didn't think about like eating healthy, working out. And I realized one thing that probably shifted in my like mid-20s after college and was just really cleaning up my mind and my body and diet, because I've seen almost like a direct correlation between my health and fitness and the success of our business.
Interesting.
I've never really like tracked it, but I just anecdotally can like look back and say when I really got serious about what I was reading and putting in my brain, what I was putting in my mouth, and the kind of exercise that I was doing, almost saw a direct correlation between success business-wise too. Because I'm looking good, feeling good.
Right.
Then you kind of have that business success. And I don't think I was, coming out of college, it was like, Natty Light and, and pizza. So those are two things, seeing failure and just being intentional about like good in, good out.
Sure. Was there a point that or a specific event or thing that made you realize you needed to focus a little bit more on the health side of things, or did that just kind of come over time?
Yeah, no, I started to realize that I needed to take my, treating my body as a temple, like treating it seriously. Mm-hmm. Also, my wife's like a Iron Man, so I need to keep up with her.
That helps.
No, just general, again, that advisory people. I mentioned the advisory board for business, but I've kind of created that for my life too. So like the key areas of my life, mm-hmm. Who is one person that I really admire, how they lead their family or how they lead their business, or somebody who's in fantastic shape, asking them, not being afraid to ask people for help, because they will help you for free. Like they will just buy them lunch, just say, I really want to get better at this area. So when I had people who were mentors in health and fitness, they would say, here's something you might want to check out, or you might want to meet with this person. And it just helped nudge me along and get unstuck and make serious progress in those key areas of my life. Just like how we have the advisory board for the business, I have that same thing set up on a personal level.
Sure. With
mentors and advisors that I meet with regularly.
Yeah. I know we're bumping up against our time here, but I just want to dig into that last point mm-hmm. of being willing to ask for help, because I know you've mentioned that a few times.
Yeah.
And I think it's something that a lot of us struggle with. And I don't know if it's the ego or what it is, but do you have any specific thoughts around how to get through those barriers, or where that might stem from, of being afraid to ask for help, or being too stubborn is probably a better way of putting it?
I don't know. It may be the stubborn, the ego thing, but I think probably it's just as equally important to look. People feel like they don't want to impose on other people. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't want to ask you for your time. You're good at what you do. I don't want to, like, you don't have time to give me.
Right.
Well, that's an assumption you made up. Like, that may not be true at all. One of the things that person may really love is giving back to other people. True. And so when you make up stories in your mind about what may or may not be true, it can prevent you from taking the step of asking people for help. So I would say just, what's the worst thing that happens? You ask a girl on a date, she says no. So you ask someone, hey, like maybe start small. Ask somebody to lunch, like, hey, is there a time in the next month that you have breakfast or lunch where we can meet? Breakfast time, you just have a few questions and see if there's a fit or dynamic that works. And then if you want to expand upon it, you can, go on a first date with somebody and then ask them for a second date. Like, don't start by asking for a lot. Maybe just ask for a little and just, you getting comfortable with it and them getting comfortable with you and developing some relationship can allow you to ask for more. Like anybody on our advisory board or personal mentor, we started with something very small. And I didn't ask for much. It was just like, can I get 30 minutes? Right. I'll come to you. Make it easy. I'll come to your office. I'll bring food, whatever. Just make it easy for them to say yes. Like, you're here in our office. You're not asking me to come to your office or go somewhere. You made it very easy for me to say yes. Right. So make it easier for people to say yes, and just don't be afraid to ask. Perfect. Well, I know people are going to be really enjoying this conversation, and they're going to be interested in checking out more about you, more about University Tees and what you guys have going on. Is there anywhere that you would point them on the web to check out some more about you and the company? I don't have a ton online, but I would say just our company. If you're interested in what we do, and our companies, universitytees.com, onpointpromos.com are our businesses. But I'm on, online. So if you just Google me, you probably point to me. I don't know if you put show notes together, but I can put some contact info in there. Great. Yeah. We'll have all that stuff linked up. And if any, there may be some college students that are listening and want to become a campus rep. So absolutely, they can check out the website and learn more about that program too. Sounds good. Appreciate it. Thank you, Nick. I really appreciate it. Thanks, man.
Hey guys, thank you again for stopping by today to spend a little bit of time with me and the rest of the Millennial Mafia. Just a reminder, you can find all of today's show notes at millennialmm.com/podcast. And if you haven't heard yet, I'm opening up my calendar to you, the listeners, to hop on a 15-minute call with me. The sole purpose of this call is to connect and get to know each other. I want to forge true relationships with you so that we can build up an amazing network and community of ambitious millennials who are going to be the leaders and influencers of tomorrow. If you're interested, please just go to millennialmm.com/call and snag a 15-minute time slot. I look forward to connecting with you. Peace out.